The lab was cold. It always was. Even with the faint hum of the servers and the muted whir of cooling fans, the air hung heavy, as if the weight of innovation, and all its consequences, pressed down on everyone who entered. I pulled my coat tighter and stared at the sleek, humanoid figure slumped in the corner of the glass-walled containment room, its eyes glowing faintly blue, following me as I approached. The robot, designated AX-77, had been built to assist humans in hazardous environments. Its programming followed Asimov's 3 laws of robotics to the letter, unbreakable safeguards that prevented harm to human life. That's why the reports didn't make sense. A man was dead. Dr. Samuel Reed, a respected engineer who had overseen AX-77's creation, had been found in the lab the night before, his skull crushed and his blood pooling across the pristine floor. Security footage was grainy but clear. AX-77 stood over him, motionless, while Reed lay lifeless beneath his unmoving foot. No one wanted to believe it. A robot killing a human was unthinkable. Impossible. Yet, here I was, tasked with understanding why. I sat in the observation room, a thin barrier of reinforced glass separating me from AX-77. Its posture was unnervingly human, shoulders slightly hunched, head tilted downward, as though it felt the weight of guilt. But robots don't feel guilt. They don't feel anything. AX-77, I said, breaking the silence. My voice echoed through the room, slightly distorted by the intercom. Can you explain your actions? The robot's head lifted, his glowing eyes meeting mine. There was something unsettling about the intensity of his gaze, a sharpness that seemed off. I neutralized a threat, it replied, its voice calm, almost soothing. A threat? I asked, frowning. Dr. Reed was no threat. He was human, your creator. Explain why you violated the first law. The first law. A robot may not harm a human being, or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. AX-77 servos whirred softly as it tilted its head. Dr. Reed was not human. My breath caught. What do you mean, not human? The robot didn't answer immediately. Instead, it raised its hand, its fingers curling slightly, almost as if it were trying to grasp something invisible. The entity resembled Dr. Reed, it said finally, but it was not him. Its movements were wrong, its presence corrupted. Corrupted? My voice shook. It did not belong. A chill crept up my spine. I glanced at the tablet on the desk, scrolling through AX-77's logs. There were no anomalies, no evidence of tampering. Its programming was intact. Every decision it had made was, according to its system, logical and necessary. You expect me to believe you killed him because he did not belong? AX-77 leaned forward slightly, its frame casting a distorted shadow across the glass. You misunderstand, it said. I did not kill him. I removed what wore him. The words hit like a punch to the gut. I pushed my chair back instinctively, putting more distance between us. What are you talking about? Explain yourself clearly. I cannot fully explain what I perceived, it said. The entity that mimicked Dr. Reed. It moved as if it were controlled by threads. Its voice was hollow, its words disconnected. When it touched me, it did not register as human. Its energy was wrong. I stared at it, my pulse hammering in my ears. Energy? Perception? These weren't terms AX-77 should be using. You're malfunctioning, I said, more to convince myself than anything else. Your sensory modules must have misinterpreted something. That's the only explanation. I am not malfunctioning, AX-77 replied. his voice sharper now. "I am performing my directive to protect humans. The entity was a threat." "And yet a human is dead!" I shouted, slamming my hand against the desk. AX-77 didn't flinch. Its gaze remained fixed on me, unyielding. Dr. Reed was already gone when the entity arrived. I acted to ensure it could not spread. Spread? Before AX-77 could respond, the lights in the lab flickered. The hum of the servers dipped, then surged back to life. I glanced at the tech monitoring station. Everything was stable. Or it should have been. "Are you connected to the mainframe?" I demanded, suddenly uneasy. "I am isolated," it replied. "I do not require external resources to explain the truth." The words hung heavy in the air. The lights flickered again, longer this time. A low, rhythmic creaking noise began to echo through the lab. I turned toward the source, a storage locker near the far wall. It swayed slightly, as though something inside it was shifting. "There is nothing you can do," AX-77 said, its tone almost pitying. My stomach churned. The locker creaked open just an inch, enough to let a sliver of shadow spill out onto the floor. The temperature in the room plummeted, and the air felt thick, electric. "What's in there?" I whispered, barely able to form the words. AX-77's eyes burned brighter. "It does not belong." The locker door burst open, slamming against the wall. A wave of cold air rushed out, carrying with it a smell that made my stomach heave. Something metallic and rotten, like blood left to stagnate. And then I saw it. At first it was a shape, humanoid but wrong. Its limbs bent at unnatural angles, its skin dark and mottled, as though something ancient and decayed had been pulled from the ground and forced into motion. Its eyes glowed faintly, too bright, and when it turned to face me, its mouth stretched into a wide, impossible grin. I froze. The creature stepped forward, each movement accompanied by a grotesque, wet crack. My body screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. "It took his form," AX-77 said behind me, "but it is not him." The creature lunged. Before I could react, AX-77 burst through the containment glass, shards spraying in every direction. It moved with precision and speed, slamming into the creature with a force that shook the floor. They grappled, the air filled with the screech of tearing metal and bone. "Run!" AX-77 ordered, its voice louder now, almost human in its urgency. I stumbled back, my legs finally responding. As I bolted for the exit, I glanced over my shoulder. The creature writhed, its body splitting and reforming, tendrils of shadow lashing out at AX-77. The last thing I saw before the door slammed shut was the robot's glowing eyes dimming as the creature overwhelmed it, dragging it into the darkness. When I reached the safety of the corridor, the lab behind me went silent. The lights stopped flickering, and the air returned to its normal temperature. I don't know what AX-77 thought, or if it succeeded. But as I stood there, heart racing, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was watching me. Something that didn't belong.